Ken, thank you so much for your time today. And why don't we just start off with you just telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, I'm the host of the Ken Coleman Show on Sirius XM, channel 132. Lead into the Dave Ramsey Show Monday through Friday at around 2 Eastern. We have a podcast of that show. The show is dedicated to helping people discover what it is they were created to do. And then once you get that part figured out, how do you create a plan that will allow you to see that dream become a reality? It's a caller-driven show, and we're having a big time doing it. I also host the Entreleadership program, which is a part of the Ramsey Solutions family as well. I guest host the Dave Ramsey Show from time to time. I guess my official title is one of the Ramsey personalities, as Dave is so generously handing us the baton slowly over time and allowing us to share our message of hope in the spaces that we represent. And I'm specifically helping people, obviously, in the career space, and through Entreleadership get to add value to leaders as well. So that's I also authored the book, One Question, husband to Stacy for almost 20 years and 3 kiddos.
Awesome stuff. So I've been following you for years and years and years, and it's been a fascinating journey to watch from the outside. I'm just curious, people see everything that you're doing now and really everything you've done over the past 10 years. I'm just curious, what do you wish people knew about your journey and in your life to your calling and what you're doing now that they may not know?
I really enjoy that question. I wish that people knew how insane the amount of patience I have had to have. I think that's what most people miss when they study stories of success. And so the way you couch that question, I think that's it. I would want everybody to know that it many times takes an insane amount of patience, because it feels like you've lost your mind.
Yeah.
And that's huge, man. You got to hang on.
Can you dive a little bit deeper and maybe provide an example or two? Because again, I was watching you early in the Catalyst days, and again, I don't know the whole journey, but I know you tried to at one point launch your own radio show, and I don't know fully what happened, but it seemed like it didn't work, and now all of a sudden you are where you are today. I just think it's been awesome. But
Yeah.
can you dive deep into that?
Well, yeah, my radio show did work. I left that radio show to come join Dave Ramsey, so it was one of those deals where I'm going to leave the Ken Coleman Show that I started on my own locally to go work with Dave Ramsey and be a part of his media platform. So it was giving up to go up. And so that's what happened there. So it was working and doing well. But what's crazy about it, Doug, is I give up the Ken Coleman Show to come join Dave and be on a much bigger platform, not knowing where it's going to end up, but knowing this is where I needed to be and that it was going to propel me forward. And it certainly was on the path. And lo and behold, the Ken Coleman Show comes back. And it's just crazy. I would have never told you 3.5 years ago when I started here that I would ever be doing the Ken Coleman Show again. So it's been really, really neat to see that come back. The gist of the question is, what did I do? How did I get here? Kind of a thing. And the reality is that I knew that I was supposed to be in broadcasting, and I knew it was going to take a long time because I hadn't gone to school for it. I didn't have relationships there. So I had a mindset. I remember telling my wife in the early days that I thought it was going to take 5 to 7 years. And this was over a dinner one night when I said, I'm all in on this, and I want to make sure you're all in. Going to stay self-employed because that's going to give me the most freedom to be able to pursue this, and I don't have a degree in it, so I'm going to have to literally start from scratch. And she said, yeah, I'm all in. And it's really strange. I'm not a spooky kind of guy and believe in self-fulfilling prophecies per se, but I really felt like I was being realistic that it might take 5 to 7 years to catch a big break. And it was about 6.5 years in, catching the big break. And, it's one of those things where, the reason I'm talking about the insane amount of patience is because there were many times, Doug, where I just felt like I was wasting my time and that it was never going to happen, and that I was essentially toiling away in anonymity. I'm chopping wood in the wilderness, and nobody sees what I'm doing. And I remember being on the Catalyst stage at times where I got a lot of attention, whether I was doing a high-profile interview or something else, and then I felt invisible at other times. like, hey, I should be getting more opportunity. And you start, woe is me, and why isn't anybody paying attention to me, and all those things. And so that's what I mean by that insane amount of patience, because there are times where you question your sanity. Am I being smart? Should I just hang this up and just focus more on my company and live a good life and blah, 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 blah. And it's just, it's worth it. It's worth it to wait.
That's good. And I'm just curious, can you dive a little bit deeper into the give up to go up and the
Mm-hmm.
courage that it took? Because again,
Mm-hmm.
you moved your family to Nashville, right, to start working for Dave, not knowing where it'd end up. Can
Mm-hmm.
you talk to people who are maybe right at that point where they have stuff to give up? It's going to require sacrifice.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's scary. What were you feeling, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah. Love that follow up. Giving up to go up is an absolute requirement on the path to success. It just is. If you're going to be continually moving up, you must give up something. So I could answer this question for an hour, because you could go through so many different intricate steps where you are choosing to continue to move forward and go up the ladder. And as a result, you're going to have to drop something. This could be friends. This could be family members who aren't on board and are just divisive, or there's boundary issues. There are times you have to give up relationships, and that's the hard truth. There are times where you're going to have to give up money, financial prosperity, and maybe just cut way, way, way back. We did that. We gave up, we sacrificed financially to be able to get here. You're going to have to give up things that you find to be comfort, in your life, whether that be routines or living in a certain place. Like we moved, back to Nashville. We had lived here before, but you're going to have to give things up. Now, a specific answer here as to what happened when Dave asked me to come here, I did have to give up the Ken Coleman Show. No question about it. And it wasn't a part of the deal. I knew I was going to be furthering my broadcast career and growing my personal brand by coming here, but at the sacrifice of the Ken Coleman Show, which was working. And I had started it from scratch and doing it on Saturday mornings, and then seeing it get national exposure and all that. Giving up lifelong relationships in a sense, because we had some deep, deep relationships in Atlanta that we left. Giving up a great house, giving up, this idea of, I think we might be in Atlanta for a very long, long time, whatever it is. So, however, seeing the opportunity and knowing that it's absolutely the right move, there's no questioning that it's the right move. But if you focus on all those things you have to give up, then, you essentially won't go up. You'll find a way to talk yourself out of the move. And for me, it was so clear. So honestly, I didn't look back. And I remember my wife being way more emotional about it than me. And somebody said, do you miss this? Do you miss that? Do you miss this? Do you miss that? And I was honest. I wasn't trying to be, bravado about it. I didn't miss it. I don't miss it at all. How can you miss something that you're never thinking about? And that sounds crass, but it's not. Like, if you're forward thinking and forward focused and forward active, you don't spend a lot of time looking over your shoulder. Now, do I reminisce from time to time? And in moments of reminiscing, I can say, oh, I miss this person, and I miss this restaurant. I miss our house, and I miss this. But that's a happy miss, not a, oh, I miss it, kind of a thing. So
Sure.
that's just my mindset.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. And so you've been with Ramsey now for 4 years,
Yeah,
correct?
coming on 4 years. Yeah.
Coming on 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been in the leadership space forever, it seems like. And I'm just curious, what have you learned about leadership and business working the last 4 years in one of the best companies probably in the country?
Yeah, that's a really broad question. So to spare your listeners, an hour-long answer, I would say two things pop in my mind. One, the vital importance of clarity and consistency of communication. Dave does that as well as any organization I've ever worked with or for. And I've worked with some great people and been around some great leaders. We just really clearly communicate as a company, and we do it consistently. So clarity and consistency of communication, that's been a huge leadership lesson I've learned since being here. And then I would also say the importance of an intentional culture. Culture is kind of this buzzword now, like leadership was 20 years ago, but a lot of people can't really define it effectively. The reality is culture is, in my mind, the shared behaviors of the organization. That's the super simple, break it down. That's it. And every company has a culture. And I can walk into any company in America, any company, and in less than 5 minutes, give you a pretty accurate read of their culture. And so could you if you know what to look for. But if you're looking for shared behaviors, you're looking for things that you know are valued there. How do people act? And so I think that intentional culture. So everybody's got a culture, but when you're intentional to shape something and shape it around your values, so the behaviors are shaped around the values, not the other way around. But a lot of organizations unintentionally shape their values around their behaviors. And that's nonsense. So imagine parenting that way. And well, unfortunately a lot of people do, but this isn't a parenting podcast, so we'll move on. But I think those are the two things that stick out of my mind of what I've learned and have been valuable for me in terms of leadership here at Ramsey Solutions.
That's good. A question I've been asking lately is, I heard a pastor say once, if you see someone that's been used significantly by God, just always ask yourself and ask God, what is it about them that allows them to be used in such a way? Again, you've been around some of the greatest leaders on the planet. Are there one or two traits that you just see over and over and over again that allows people to be used in the way that they are?
Yeah, it's an insatiable curiosity. The wildly successful people I've been able to interview, they all share that trait. They're always learning. So it's not just curiosity for the sake of curiosity, looking around the room and bugging everybody with how was that fan made? Where was it made? Where was it shipped from? That's kind of a nonsensical curiosity. I'm talking about a really pinpointed, laser-focused desire to keep learning. And it's certainly in the areas of where they work in their field, their audience, or their target market, things of that nature. They're just always learning new things. And that's absolutely a key trait across the board of high achievers. Second thing is, I would say courage. And again, courage can mean many different things to so many different people. It doesn't mean that they've got to have this John Wayne swagger and they're just always risking everything. I think of Richard Branson. That guy's and I love Branson. I'm reading his biography right now, but obviously he has tremendous courage. But it doesn't always have to be this risk-taking courage. It's just courage of conviction, to stand your ground, to not cave in when market pressures happen, but you believe you're doing what's right. Holding, standing, not quitting. It's not just risk-taking, but those are kind of three major categories of courage. But I would say curiosity and courage.
I love that. I want to talk a little bit about career and calling. So you now have a radio show helping people finding their calling in life and helping them with their career path. And I'm just curious, since the radio show has started, what patterns are you seeing emerge when it comes to people needing help with their career and calling?
Yeah, a lot of people feeling like, and as a result, believing when they call in on the show that they don't have a passion. And this is equal parts sad and shocking for me, because something has happened in their life to where they haven't felt something in so long, or they haven't allowed themselves to imagine and to dream about what could be and what should be. And by the way, none of us have to be taught how to do that. We do that from early on in our life. And so that's one big pattern, is people just not sensing what it is that would make them come alive. The other one is equally as bad. It's on the other side of the main framework of what I work with people on, which is top talent and top passion. The other thing is, some people can't identify what they're good at. I can't tell you how many times someone will tell me on the phone, well, I'm hardworking. That's not a skill. That's a character trait.
Yeah.
So it's really, really interesting. We, in America, and that's not their fault. We live in this Western culture that we don't have these conversations with each other because it's not happening in schools. So you'll go K through 12, maybe even college, and never have a significant conversation about what your top talents are, which to me is mind-blowing. Because here's the deal. Once I start to break them down on the phone and ask them a couple follow-up questions and take the pressure off of them, And I ask questions like, well, what would your closest friends tell me your top strengths are? Then we get a little bit of breakthrough. So that's a couple interesting patterns. I would also say limiting beliefs, which again, this is psychology 101 stuff. But people, two key questions that every human being asks. This is all psychology stuff that's out there for anybody to look up. Number one, am I loved? And number two, am I good enough, or do I have what it takes? These are the core questions that every human being is asking. And on a regular basis, we don't ever stop asking these things. That's what's crazy. So I see a lot of limiting beliefs where someone has had someone in their life say something, do something to them, and it has created this false narrative in their mind, and it's been hanging around so long that it has become the voice. It wasn't even their statement. It wasn't even their voice, but it's become their voice. William James is known as the father of modern psychology, and he once said, and this is crazy true, and you just think about this in context of all of society, and your listeners right now, if you're struggling with a limiting belief, you need to hear this. William James said that no matter how absurd something is, if it is repeated often enough, people will believe it. Now just soak on that for a second. I'm going to say it again. It's so ridiculously profound. No matter how absurd something is, if it is repeated often enough, people will believe it. So here's what that means. In your head, folks, right now, if for years you've been telling yourself or you've been believing somebody's voice in your life that said you don't have what it takes, or you're not good enough, or you're not pretty, or you're fat, or whatever it is, that's been bouncing around in your head so long that has now seeped from your brain down into your heart. And you have taken on that identity, and it's not true. So we deal with limiting beliefs so much. Last pattern, people wanting to make the safe decision versus the smart decision. This is one I'm super passionate about, beginning to see this develop on the show. I had a guy call me in today, actually, Doug, a little earlier today when the show was on. A guy calls in, and he's got two career choices in front of him. And by the way, this involves this limiting belief I just shared. This is really a great illustration. And he says, I'm in radio and I love my job. I just got the promotion and I love it. It's exactly what I want to do. But I got this chance to take a government job in defense contracting, and it's a little bit more money, but it's really stable. They got good retirement and a lot of good government benefits. What do you think I should do? And I said, wait a second. You're telling me this promotion you just got at the radio station is the work that you love to do. That's what you would do if you didn't have to work. He goes, absolutely. And I said, well, what's going on? There's something else I don't know about. What? He goes, well, I'm not sure it's a grown-up job. I go, grown-up job? Where did you hear that? Wow. A woman that he dated 7 years ago asked him one time in the middle of a fight if he was going to ever go get a real career, a grown-up job, or just play around in radio. And that guy, for 7 years, has allowed that thing to bounce around in his head. And so we break it down for him, and I said, well, which job do you really, really want to do? He says, without a doubt, the radio. I go, then this phone call's done. Why in the world would you go take that defense job? And so, but here he is. He's thinking safe versus smart. So let me delineate that. Safe decisions in life, and by the way, this is for leaders too. Safe leadership decisions, in my mind, will eventually lead to regret. When you're on your deathbed and everybody's gathered around the room, let's just say it's romantic like that. That's how I hope it is for me. And everybody's gathered around that are my close friends and family, and we're reminiscing. The whole time I'm laughing, crying, but it's reminiscing because I made the smart risk. I took what information I had, and I trusted my heart and my brain, and I went for it. And did I fail? Yes. But did I learn from my failures? Yes. Did the decision that I failed on still propel me forward? Yes. And so my life is, I'm not thinking about my failures in those last moments. I'm reminiscing on all the good things that came of me being purposeful and making smart decisions. If you make safe decisions, you're going to be sitting in that room and you're going to be regretting things that you never did. So I'm really on this crusade right now to stop making safe decisions and start making smart decisions.
That really spoke to me too. So thank you so much for that. And if
Cool.
someone's listening to this and saying, wow, I want to connect with Ken, how can they, again, get connected with your show and hear this on a daily basis?
Yeah, KenColemanShow.com is the website. Great place to connect because all my social stuff is there on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, all of those connections right there and easy to find. Would love to connect there. I would tell you this, I interact with the audience there. I'm doing my own stuff. So you send me a comment on any of those formats, I'm going to reply. I'm going to like it. That's me. I like to be accessible. And then I would say, again, just listen to the show on SiriusXM 132, 2 Eastern, Monday through Friday. If you don't have SiriusXM, you can get it as a podcast, comes out daily. And so, of course, iTunes, Google Play, wherever you can pull a podcast, that's where you can get the Ken Coleman Show. And as well, Entreleadership for leaders, Entreleadership program. I'm very, very passionate about that tribe as well.
That's awesome. And I'll include links to all of that in the show notes.
Cool.
I want to dive into what I call the lightning round, just a bunch of fun questions.
Okay, lightning
specific.
round. I'm very nervous, Doug. I'm very nervous.
No reason to be nervous. You'll be great at this. You'll love it. A few questions just because you've interviewed so many great leaders. I've asked you this last time, but is there anyone still on your bucket list of people you want to interview in your life?
Yeah, Tiger Woods, Oprah Winfrey, Richard Branson, Michael Jordan. I could go on and on and on.
Are any of those looking to be a reality in the next year or two?
Yeah, I think Branson's going to happen. Awesome. I think Branson's going to happen. I've not tried for any of the others. You know, it's interesting. You know, but those are the ones, like, if I was going to just sit down and go, that's the cocktail party question, and I love it. And those are the people that I would most love to shape an interview with for sure because of their stories. And I think I could do something different that hasn't been done.
I love that.
I'll tell you another, Lance Armstrong. I'm close on Lance because I want to talk to somebody about redemption and what it's like to keep coming back after the whole world thinks you're just the worst person on the planet. I dig stories like that.
Wow. I look forward to all of those if they happen. So what is one belief or behavior that's changed your life?
That God loves me, that he created me, and he has absolutely something specific that he wants me to do.
Love it. If you had to write something on a billboard for everyone to read, what would it say?
You matter, and you've got what it takes. That's how I close every radio show, by the way.
That's phenomenal. What is the best purchase you've made in the last year for $100 or less?
Dang, that's a good question. It's got to be probably a pair of J. Crew pants that I got on sale recently in New York. I was up there for media, and I was pretty stoked to get them. They're pretty awesome.
That's awesome. What's the top book you're recommending right now or giving out?
You know, this is really cool. I picked this one off my shelf. I did this interview back in the day on the very first version of the Ken Coleman Show. And I've got to look it up because I don't want to say it wrong, but I believe it's called The Underdog. It's by Poe Bronson, and he co-authored it with another lady. And it's The Science of Winning is the subtitle. But let me pull this up because it's so important that you get this. Let's see, Underdog. Hey, you can edit this, right?
Yep.
Okay, edit this because I really want to give people this because I've been pouring through it. Look up Poe Bronson books. Oh, here it is. This is great. Okay, you ready? Yeah. So I'll give you a pickup. So you've already asked me the question, and I'm going to give it to you. Okay, so this is fun. I pulled this book off my shelf after several years, and I did an interview on it with Poe Bronson, who wrote the book, What Should I Do in My Life?, which was his runaway bestseller. And he co-authored this book with Ashley Merriman. And this is the title, and then I'll tell you why I'm so in crazy love with it. It's called Top Dog, The Science of Winning and Losing. So with the Ken Coleman Show now, I'm like reading psychology studies and all this kind of stuff all the time because it's a big part of what I'm helping people with. And this book is so good. I'm rereading it, and so that would be something I recommend, because here's what's cool about it. It really breaks down the science between underdogs and why they can sometimes knock off, like in the sports world, how like the crazy underdog can somehow beat this team that's so heavily favored. But it goes way deeper than that. And it really is about competition and how important competition is. Again, forget sports for a moment, but just the spirit of competition, how important it is in winning in life. It's really fascinating stuff.
Wow. Well, I will buy that right after this interview.
It's great, dude. You will absolutely thank me for that.
That's awesome. Favorite podcast that you listen to?
Favorite podcast that I listen to? You know what? It's Colin Cowherd, The Herd. I'm a sports maniac. I love sports. So when I'm on the treadmill or the stationary bike, I listen to him because I listen to so much other stuff on other times. So that's my guilty pleasure, because he's very thoughtful. He's actually a world-class communicator, and he comes at sports very different. I think he's the thinking man's sports host, and I find him to be really, really enjoyable to listen to. So that's probably my favorite podcast.
I love that. Well, hey, we're about out of time, so I'll just leave it really open-ended. Anything you want to leave our listeners with today about leadership, life, or anything else?
Well, I'll tell you, the thing I think about every day, and I try to communicate every day to people, is that there's absolutely zero question in my mind that we were all created to do something very, very specific. And it is not this gigantic mystery that a few lucky people in life stumble upon. It's there for all of us, and it's within us. And the sweet spot analogy that I use so much, that was given to me by my mentor in my 20s, is so rich and so profound. And it bears repeating, and it drives home what I'm saying. And that is that your sweet spot exists at the intersection of your great talent and great passion, meaning you use your top skills, your top talents to perform the work that gives you joy, that matters most to you. And when you can do that, you will achieve something greater than success. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm getting a little fed up with all the self-help stuff I'm seeing and hearing, where it's all about your awesomeness and your greatness. I'm going to tell you something. If you're pursuing greatness, it better be as a craftsman of your craft, not just, I want to be great and people think that I'm great, because you're on a very, very slippery slope. However, if you pursue your sweet spot and you step into it and you live it, you're going to get something greater than success, and it's significance. Deep down, Doug, every one of us wants to make a difference in our life. We want to matter. And you achieve that, you'll have plenty of success. You'll have plenty of money, because it'll be enough for you. And so that speaks to what's driving you. And so that's the message that I want to spend the rest of my life sharing, one-on-one, 1-on-10, 1-on-10,000, because it's so vitally important. This world, just think for a moment, just think how great of a place this world would be if we had people walking around with that confidence every day. It's paradise. I mean, it's just nuts. It's incomprehensible, because it's so crazy to assume and to think that that could happen. But one person at a time, that's what I want to do.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that message with me today, and everyone that will listen to this. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah. Do you have 30 seconds to 45 seconds?
Yeah.
I really don't want to rush.
No, you're fine, dude. I didn't know if you wanted to get to more of those things here. I had, so I'm in no crazy rush, but.
Okay. It's 4:30. So I wanted to,
go for it.
To end. This is more of a specific question. I don't know if you knew Matt Keller, Next Level Church. He's in Fort Myers, Florida. He interviewed Dave. I don't know when, but he's interviewed you
Matt.
too. Yeah. You were on the podcast.
Yeah. I was on his thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So he gave me great feedback on interviewing people once. He said, hey, so you have so many questions, and sometimes you're so focused on getting to the next question that it sounds like you're not really listening to the speaker, and you miss opportunities to go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
I find that personally, when I'm interviewing people, one, that is true. So that was great feedback, but I'm horrible at the in-between transitions. I usually say like, oh, that's great. Next. I mean, I don't know how much you paid attention in our interview.
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle transitions to next questions or next thoughts? I just feel like I'm horrible at that.
Well, do you listen to me on Entree Podcast or anything like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, just go back and next time you listen, give a listen, not maybe for the content, but listen to how I talk in between questions. So that's the best way for me to answer your question is actually like pay attention to how I do it. But how I do it is I'm always tying in the answer. If it's a follow-up question, then I tie in the answer they just gave to what I'm about to do. So the bridge goes from, okay, I'm trying to think how I would say it. Okay, I would say something like this. Okay, I want to stay here for a moment. You just said this. And so I kind of quickly take the listener back into the moment that they just heard. And then I bridge into the follow-up question. So it's real smooth. It's just kind of this boom, 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 boom. It's seamless. Okay, I want to stay here. Here's why I want to stay here. You just said this. And then boom, here's the follow-up question. When there's not a follow-up question and you're moving on to the next thing, it's just as simple as moving right into the question. You don't have to say, oh, that's really good. Or, oh, okay, I love that. And then like reset. I notice you do that every time.
Yeah.
So, it's not bad, but you asked me for feedback. Yeah.
I want it. Yeah.
You got a crutch where you're just kind of going, okay, good. And I need to say something. And now I'm going to reset. And I think if we went to lunch, you probably wouldn't be that way.
Right.
So you got to do an interview just like you would have a conversation. And part of that is you got to go back and listen and it's tough to do, but you got to listen to yourself and then pause and go, okay, how could I have been more conversational there? So, for you, think about the listening experience. Like you don't have to say anything empty. You could just, I answer the question and you go, I want to move into boom, or here's one thing, just ask the question. Like there is no rules for this. And I think what you have to do as the interviewer is say, how do I best fade away in the interview? Like, how do I disappear?
Yeah.
I
guess I feel so much pressure in that, it's probably a tenth of a second that I'm like, I have to say something. And,
okay, so good. Let's focus on that for a second. So you really have that pressure you feel to say something is coming from a fear. What's your fear? Just call it out. What's your fear?
That there'll be dead space, or that I really don't know. I've never.
It's not dead space. It's not dead space. What's your fear? Tell the truth. I know what it is, but I want you to say it.
I really don't know. I really think this is like, I think that feedback that Matt gave me is true, but I can't pinpoint that.
Yeah. So your fear that where you feel this pressure to say something real quick. So your fear is that your guest is going to think that you're something that, that you're worried about the guest. That's what you're worried about. You're not worried about the audience because the audience is not getting this till after the fact. And you can edit all that. You're afraid of something. I don't know what specifically is, but you're afraid that whoever the guest is going to think he's not paying attention to me. He didn't like my answer. This guy's not polite. And that's because your brain's wrapped up into, you're still nervous talking to people like whoever. You shouldn't be nervous talking to me. That's for sure. But the point is that that's what's going on in your head. No, you got to own that. That's what you're afraid of something. Just call it out. Yeah. And that's what you're afraid of. So then you go, how do you get past the fear? You shine the light of truth on the fear. So do you have to say something some little thing that's completely worthless to connect with your guest? No.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I get it. I've been there. Listen, at some point you get to a place where you go, hey, I'm shaping this conversation, and your guest will always respond to your confidence.
Yeah. I think I'm getting there. I think for me, we're kind of what Matt said, I'm so dependent on the question and the format that I have together. And my confidence is in the question. And so when I don't have a question, the insecurities pop up. What if I go somewhere dumb, or what if?
Well, I got your questions right here. And so this is a great little outline for you, but all this is this gives you freedom to actually listen to me and riff. Because if your nerves hit you and you go, oh crap, what's my next question? It's right here. It is.
Yeah.
How about just listening and going, oh, what do I think my audience liked out of that answer? Is there something I think I should follow up there? Did I learn something? Let me tell you by the way, this was one of your questions you didn't ask me, and I thought it was your best question. And this actually
do you want me to ask it right now? I'll throw it in.
Well, I didn't know you were going to ask me for tips, but I'm going to tell you. You said, what is the best feedback you've given or received when it comes to interviewing? And the best feedback I have ever received, and I've had it from a lot of people, and Matt Keller was one of them, a megachurch pastor that you were just telling me about. But I've gotten this one a lot, and it's my favorite one, and it means the most to me, and it was this, that listeners can tell I'm learning alongside of them.
Wow.
Now, how do you think they feel that? They know. They just feel it. They can sense that so the reason is because I'm not asking the next question on the sheet of paper. I'm diving into their answer. I'm wrestling with it. I'm adding a little insight to it. You've heard me do this 100 times.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't even ask a question before I go, I wrote a couple of things down there. And I do in the Entre studio. I'm writing stuff down, and I'll say, I wrote these 2 things down. Is that right? And I'll put myself out there in a vulnerable position knowing they could go, well, no, who gives a crap?
Right.
Because it's not about me. I'm jiving, I'm hanging, I'm having a conversation with somebody who's really, really smart. And I'm supposed to be learning so that the audience can learn. So that's what's going on.
So is your typical list of questions short? I mean, do you tend to stick in like hey, here's 5 questions that I at least want to get to, but I'm just going to see where the conversation goes? Or are you like me and have 3 pages?
No, I don't do 3 pages anymore, but I used to, and I think what you're doing is good. But I'm at a point now where I go in and I have an idea of 3 to 5 max, because I don't need them anymore, because 50% of the interviews that I'm doing these days are completely extemporaneous because, and I'm just going to tell you, it's confidence. I'm at a point where I know I can listen, and the best stuff is probably going to come from what they actually said to me. And I figure out a way to keep diving deeper on it, and let's go deep down. I'm just drilling. So that comes after a lot of years. I mean, I would tell you thousands of interviews at this point. I don't know if it's thousands. I'd say 1,500.
Yeah.
I don't think that's an exaggeration. I don't want to say thousands, but a lot. And then multiply the hours to that in preparation plus performing the interview. So you get to a point where I'm so just chilling and having fun with it, and I'm confident to be able to listen. And so I don't need a question written. By the way, I don't write my questions out anymore. Even when I did like the Hershevik Summit interview, and the guy was like, oh my gosh, Ken, who are you? And, you're incredible. He kept saying it, and the audience is laughing. And I have an iPad up there that has 4 things written on it. Wow. They were just 4 topics. Like, it kind of knew I wanted to cover this, and I knew that there were probably 2 or 3 things I'd cover on that topic. But again, I'm formulating the question right on the spot because I'm just looking at this guy. And to be honest with you, my pulse rate is so low that I really am not worried about the audience. The audience is like fun for me, and it's exciting, but that comes with experience. It's not a talent issue. That's just a confidence issue.
Yeah.
So it's like Mackenzie sitting here. I'm sitting with her, and if I'm talking to her about something, I'm not like looking at a sheet of paper to ask her a question.
Hi.
I look at her in the eye, and I ask her a question. She gives me a response, and if she answered it, then I go, okay. And if it triggered another question, I ask her another question. I'm not trying to be obnoxious with this, but that's how an interview should go, just like you would have a conversation with somebody. So is that helpful?
Oh, so helpful. So yeah. Thank you.
Well, it's good to see you again, buddy.
Hey, you as well. Thank you so much for your time. And
keep hustling and keep moving forward. And I love your spirit. You got a great spirit about you, and appreciate you having me on. Hope it helps your audience.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, Doug. See you, buddy.